Hello, make a start. Yesterday and a lot of today, speaking to so many people, farmers coming to speak to us, looking to diversify into something that is not going to take up a lot of their time. And they all like the idea of having a business where they don't have to speak to customers, they can just basically get it up and running, sit back and relax and reap the rewards. And that's exactly what self-storage is. With us today, we've got myself, I'm Pennicott, the Marketing Director of Cleveland Containers. I've been with Cleveland Containers coming up 10 years. Been involved with self-storage pretty much all that time. Helped hundreds of self-storers get started and helped them on their journey.
Yeah, so my name's Hebblethwaite, as you can see on the screen. I work for a company called DSOC, and what we do, we remotely monitor CCTV and alarms, so we're effectively a control room. And the reason I'm on this panel is we do that for a heck of a lot of self-storage businesses. We're now at around 600 different self-storage facilities that are connected to us via CCTV, intruder alarm, fire alarm, unit alarms, effectively remotely receiving all of these events on self-storers' behalf.
My name's Gavin Shields. So I have a self-storage business in Northern Ireland. I've now got one site. I had two sites. So I opened that about 5 years ago. And then off the back of that, I built a lot of technology to help run the business as sort of hands-free as possible, automate lots of stuff. So now I have a company called Stora. So it's a software platform for self-storage that's used by about 400 of the self-storage sites in the UK. Lots and lots of people, possibly like yourselves, like farmers who are getting into self-storage, container sites. We have everything from 10 containers customers up to some of the bigger chains in the UK with 5 or 10 sites, big indoor sites. So our platform works for sort of any size of business too.
My name is Ben Temple. I'm from a company called ET Planning. So we deal with all the administration and paperwork side of getting the land use sorted out to allow you to operate your self-storage site with the local planning authority.
Thanks, guys. So for anyone who's completely brand new to self-storage, it's very simple. It's just a service where individuals and businesses can rent secure space on your land for short or long-term use. We can connect you to the people within the self-storage industry who can allow you to run your self-storage business completely hands-free, taking up only 10% of your time, but delivering up to 40% net returns. Gavin, you've got 2 sites, haven't you? Do you want to talk through some of the returns you've seen very briefly?
Yeah. So my first site, which actually I sold last month, within about 21 months, I think it was, I put in £200,000 initial investment, and it was making about 80 grand a year. So I was making exactly 40% return on my first site.
So a bit on the industry. All these stats have come from the SSA UK, which is the UK's industry body for self-storage. The industry is currently just tipped over 1 billion, I think just this year. There are over 2,700 stores in the UK and 1,000 of them are container sites. There's over 1,400 individual operators. 13% of them sites have no full-time staff, and I think that's growing year on year. And I'll let Gavin talk through this one.
Yeah, so this stat is one of the most interesting stats I found whenever I decided to get into self-storage about 5 years ago. One of the things that I often get asked by people, even today and yesterday, is it too late to get into self-storage? And this is the stat that I've always thought was really interesting. If you look at the US market, there are 7 square feet of self-storage supply per head of population. In the UK, whenever I started 5 years ago, it was 0.7. It's now 0.89. Where can that get to over the next while? It's 1.4, 1.5 in London. So it's higher depending where it is in the UK. But there's definitely, from what I can see here, this stat alone tells me there's lots of room for growth, and there's still a great time to get into the self-storage industry.
So we think there's 8 key steps to starting a self-storage business. There's the research, location, planning, site prep, the containers, the security, systems, and finally marketing. If we start with the research, you really want to look at the demand in your area, like looking at local demographics, total population, age. Like 53% of self-storage customers travel less than 15 minutes to their site, so you really want to look at sort of a 7 to 8 mile radius of your site and look who's about. The highest users of self-storage is the 55 to 64 age bracket. And look at things like student population, number of businesses. I think there's a massive shift in self-storage users. It was predominantly like B2C, how people are moving house, things like that. But now I think more and more businesses are moving to self-storage because they're being tied into really long leases on warehouses, 10, 15, 20 years we're seeing, when they could just rent 10, 20-foot containers for the same square foot space and then not have to pay business rates, etc. So there's a massive shift towards small businesses being more and more attracted to container self-storage, because with container self-storage, you can drive up to the containers, unlike indoor storage. Look at what your competitors are doing. Their occupancy rate. We see so many self-storers who are at 100% occupancy and who've got waiting lists. Like their waiting lists are potentially your customers. Look if they're offering insurance. It's really easy to sell insurance in self-storage. There's plenty of suppliers out there. It's literally just with a system like Stora, it's just a tick box when someone's signing up to. It's a really easy add-on sell. And discounts for small businesses, I think, is a really powerful tool to attract new customers. Pricing as well. Like I'd say throughout the UK, average £30 to £40 a week for a 20-foot container, which is 160 square foot. But I think, like Gavin, you said yesterday, didn't you? You're seeing way above that in some areas, aren't you?
Yeah, we've a customer in London who charges £600 a month for a 20-foot container for self-storage. So, yeah, the prices range from £30 a week to £120 a week.
Yeah, and there's a self-storage Milton Keynes who's in a really unique spot, and she's got a lot of little businesses around them, and I think she's charging some people £500 a month, but locking them into 12-month deals. So like, there is the ability to be really flexible with what you want to offer your customers. The location. I spoke to someone yesterday, and he was like, I really like the idea of self-storage, but I feel like I'm in the middle of nowhere. I looked where he was, and actually, yeah, it was in between a few towns and stuff, but we've got a self-storer in Leyburn in Yorkshire, and he is honestly, you look at the map and you think he's not near anyone, but he's got 300 plus containers on his site, and he's growing week on week on week. So it's really not that important to be in a town centre. Like rural locations can be very attractive, lower costs, space, and added security as well. Accessibility is key as well. You want to have a site that's really easy to access from main roads for not only the delivery of the containers, but obviously your customers. And roadside visibility is really key as well. 70% of the public, the local public, know their local self-storage site thanks to roadside advertising. So having a really strong roadside presence is key as well. Moving on to planning, I'll let Ben take over from here.
Yeah, so in a lot of circumstances, changing the use of the land to B8 storage is useful. It's ideal if you've already got hard standing covering the land, which relates to the next point, which is when you're getting planning permission for the change of use, there's a national requirement for biodiversity net gain. So if you've got a grassed site or a wild site and you're changing that to hard standing, there's obviously a loss of ecological value, and then you have to then still provide a 10% biodiversity net gain. So if you've got previously developed land or you've got yards on farms that are already covered in hard standing, that's an ideal position to take because it lowers your investment cost of entry to get in the planning process. We would also check to see whether you're in greenbelt areas. So there's again a national presumption against development in greenbelt areas. It's not impossible. There are some strategies that we can engage to try and to get an accepted planning application, but it is a lot harder there. And if the site's in a high flood risk area, we just need to assess if it's on the floodplain, figure out whether there's mitigation measures. But self-storage sites can be an appropriate use on the floodplain because they're not affecting, it's a less sensitive use compared to, say, residential uses or holiday lets. And if a site's in an area of outstanding natural beauty, the need to protect the landscape, the visual impact is quite high. So restrictions there might limit being able to double stack, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's an outright no for doing self-storage in those areas. And then the other thing that we look for is to make sure that the parking on site is adequate. You don't need huge amounts of parking for self-storage centres, but you do need some. And again, like Lewis has already inferred, we need to make sure that visibility displays and access is good for people accessing the site, so that those trip generations aren't going to increase highway safety risks. This is an example site we're working on with Cleveland at the moment for a customer. So this is changing the use of an existing car park that serves another business. So the end of the car park wasn't being used very much by that business. So we undertook a traffic survey and a transport statement to demonstrate that the existing business didn't need as much parking compared to what their site provided for them. We already had good access through that car park. So just taking off the end of the car park, putting in storage containers has allowed us to justify the business case for the self-storage provision. Impacts are limited because it was already hard standing. It's just fencing off, creating security for that area. But again, the security's increased because there's another active business use next to it as well.
And just something to add there, this is a drawing we did for our customer, and we supplied it to ET Planning to go for the plan application. This service is all part of what we can offer at Cleveland. If you have got a site, we can look at the what three words location, look at the boundary, and we can design these plans completely free of charge. It'll save you a couple of grand having to go to an architect to create these plans, and we can do them. We've got a team in-house who can create these pretty rapidly. So just an added thing, really. We're happy to do these plans for you, maximise the layout. I think this one here is a double stacked one, isn't it, Ben? So it's like we've got a ground floor and it's double stacked.
Yeah, this is a double stacked one, and and we really enjoy working with Cleveland on doing this. So feedback we give them in terms of what the constraints might be. So if we say there's residential properties on a particular boundary, it's probably best not to double stack in that area. They're really quick turning that around, which is really useful for our preparations.
Quick note as well, you can see on this plan here with it double stacked. When you are double stacking, you just want to be careful of fire regulations and not doing the top row too long and leaving a gap in the middle. So when you are coming to do your site, really plan for the future. Plan, because so many people start with just 10 containers and before they know it, they've got 500 containers on the site. So plan for the future. Plan like your self-storage business will take off. So on the land, if you haven't dealt with containers before, it's really important to have solid ground, hard standing ground. Hardcore's fine, as long as the four corners are supported. So you can put the container on the ground. We'll deliver normally on a high-ab truck, and the driver will have like wooden chocks, breeze blocks, etc. Just making sure the four corners of the container are supported, just so you don't run into any issues with the doors getting stiff. If the doors aren't aligned, it's called a racked container, and the doors will be hard to open and close. So just be careful with the ground, make sure they're dead level. And like I said before, just plan for the future. So you can see this is what toppers look like. So you've got a row of standard 20 foots on the bottom, and on top of that we take a 20 foot, we cut the middle out, and then we make 2 rooms either side, so it looks like that on the inside. Just helps you maximise the revenue on your site. So you've got 20 foot on the bottom, but then if you really want to utilise as much space as possible on your site, you can do toppers on top. The containers available, like 20 foot containers are the absolute industry standard, the most economical in terms of price, the balance between space and cost. You can get 8 foot and 10 foots as well. These are typically 10 foots are more expensive than 20 foots because don't want to bore you, but when containers come from China, 20 foots come full of goods, 10 foots, an 8 foot will come inside a 10 foot, and we have to pay for the shipping on them. So the smaller containers, oddly, are as expensive or more expensive than a 20 foot container, but they are good for filling gaps. And it's when we're speaking to self-storage, it's good to have small units on site to upsell people to a 20 foot, because people might turn up with a couple of tubs of clothes, but you don't want them taking a 20 foot because someone might come along wanting to store their house goods, but if someone with just 2 tubs has took a 20 foot, you're losing a customer. So it's good to have some small units on site to offer a bit of both. And we can get 40 foot containers as well if you do your site properly and you do rows of 20 down the middle of the site. If someone comes along and wants to store lots of goods, typically a business, you can offer them a 40 foot, get it delivered in ad hoc, and then drop it in the middle, and it takes up no room, and it's not an awkward unit on the site. And then if they do check out, you could then move the 40 foot and drop 2 20 foots back in where that 40 foot was. The different types of conversions of containers as well. So we mentioned toppers. They are really great for maximising your revenue on your site. You can get tunnel containers as well, and you can get a thing called a removable partition to put in the middle, so you can create 2 10 foots or a 5 foot and a 15 foot. You can move it, and then if you're using a platform like Stora, it's really easy to customise the space on your site. Multi-stores as well are great. These are becoming much more popular just because they can generate much more revenue than a 20 foot. 20 foot standards are always going to be the bread and butter of self-storage, but if you've got the end of a row, instead of putting 2 20 foots at the end of a row, I would put 2 multi-stores on the end. Then you've got 8, 8x8 foot rooms, and you can get £15 a week, £20 a week for them little storage rooms where you're getting £30-40 a week for a 20 foot. So you can generate up to 70% more revenue from multi-stores. On the condition as well, by far now everyone's moved to one trips really for self-storage. They last 30, 50 years if you look after them. Look after the roofs, look after the seals. They'll last a long time. Cost-wise as well, 20 foots have come down lately. You're looking at around about £2,000 for a 20-foot container from Felix store. But I think prices are going to start creeping up. We're hearing a lot of noise in China. The shipping lines are placing big orders. That might drive the price back up. So if you're looking to get into it, now's a good time. With one trips as well, you get 18 vents, easy opening doors. They're much nicer looking as well. The green ones there, we sell 70% of our containers. We sell the green ones. They're a lot more friendly to councils as well, getting through planning the green ones. Whereas a used one, you're looking at 15, 20 years for a used one. The door handles are low. They'll be stiff. It'll be rusty. A typical price for a used container, anywhere from £1,000 to £1,500, depending where you are for a used 20-foot container. I'll let Ant take over now to talk about some security.
Yeah, cheers. It's a good job it's security because I can't tell you anything about containers. So guys, I alluded it to and I introduced myself. My background, I'm a security engineer, so I install CCTV systems and alarm systems, and then I've started working for DSOC on the remote monitoring side and trying to protect people's businesses and people. And one sector that we engaged with back in 2021 was a big-sized opportunity in self-storage. And you quite quickly learn the internal storage has got so many different moving pieces. They've got the unit alarms, the intruder alarms, the fire alarms and such like. A massive advantage in this space for external storage is you can protect it with CCTV and access control, and you can do it really well. So you can establish your perimeter, protect that perimeter with cameras, have your entrance position protected with access control with a camera, and then all of that can be remotely monitored by us. Sounds like a lot. It doesn't need to be a lot at the start. It could be the entrance gate and 10 containers, so therefore you only need a couple of cameras and your access control on the gate. So it's kind of have the security in mind whilst you're doing all of what these experts do, which is why I'm thankful that I'm on this and that we work with the guys on Box Plus, because there's nothing better than being involved that early for the security so that all them considerations are put into that design phase so that when it does connect to us, it's the right technology that we can work with. We can then look after that site for you and you can have that peace of mind that it's been protected for your customers and for yourself. And I think that's the biggest advantage of working with Cleveland and Box Plus for DSOC is to provide you true hands-free. I think without that on the security side of things, it's always going to be a concern. And we're realising by working with more self-storers, that's a concern as to why they didn't go into storage. And now that we're packaging it how we are and everybody's talking as one united front with suppliers, they're then getting over that hurdle much sooner. Obviously, what we're trying to do, we're trying to prevent crime. It can be an unpopular topic to talk about, but if we don't do these measures, you may attract crime. So that's the first thing to tick off. Fencing, design phase. Everything to do with the CAD design, where your containers are being dropped, establish that fencing perimeter. This might be alongside an existing other business, especially if you're a farmer. It's very important to establish where is your storage area, how are you defining that? So therefore, how are you securing that? So fencing. And then we get onto some kind of more advanced things, which is a little bit more down the line. Analytics, we use video analytics through the cameras so that we're not getting something called false alarms, so that we're presented with humans and vehicles, so that we can best look after your site out of hours. They're just tools that we use on the remote monitoring side. And then the last piece on this slide, to restrict unauthorized access. So you need the access control for your customers. So that's the first thing to secure. Make sure that that works with a platform like Stora, that's them customers then can access your site, and you know when you check your logs that that's a customer. But also for our side, someone who's not a customer trying to gain access can't. So it really is as simple as that. It's just having it in mind nice and early.
When we're talking about access controls, it's a keypad, it could be a QR code, that when you register and sign up to, when your customer signs up to rent a storage container through something like Stora, they'll automatically be emailed a code or a QR code to then drive up to the site, enter the code, whatever they're doing, and then gain access.
Yeah, there's a lot of app-based systems as well at the minute. Electronic access control, so it's through the app. PIN code, proximity readers, There are a lot of options.
AMPR.
AMPR, there's all sorts of options. It's just define that access control. How are you letting your customers in and stopping non-customers from going in? It can be hard to define that if you're not having it monitored at times. So quickly, moving on, lighting and motion sensors. You'd hope it'd be a no-brainer, but again, get the right suppliers, guys that are used to specifying lighting for this environment. You don't want shadows in certain areas that a customer's going to go. You don't want to be encouraging slip, trips and falls. So just engage early. Speakers for communication. Again, I'm going to say this from a DSOC perspective, but also for yourself. If you were remotely managing your 1, 2, 3 sites, because it's at that scale where you can do it yourself, it's nice to be able to talk to them customers on that site. So if they're having an issue, difficulty with the gates, you can not only jump onto the cameras, but you can also engage with audio, which is a tool that we use not just for telling people to scarper away from site. We use it also as a customer service piece to give that customer kind of peace of mind out of hours. This is another tie into your software packages for your access control. You want to make sure all of, as much as you engage with, works with each other. The technology there these days is, it works out of the box in this way, and it sometimes feels like it's such a advanced technology that you think it's going to be expensive, and then you don't talk to them about whether it is expensive or not, and can they work together. And I'm finding from talking to people like Gavin, there's pretty much an integration to be done with any of these access control systems, online booking systems. So just make them all talk to each other as well, is what I'd say. And then again, I'd hope this would be a no-brainer, but it's worth saying, maintenance. So whether that's engage a supplier contractor for regular PPM visits to make sure they're coming back to your sites, to make sure the cameras are in good working order, the gates are working in good order, or whether that's yourselves, just doing facility management style maintenance. We obviously actively encourage that. That's us. So we're a control room. Everything that I'm speaking about comes back to that control room. So our facility is based in Doncaster, and all of these different systems send events and alarms back to our alarm platform. We receive these, and our human operators will then assess the situation and escalate accordingly. So in some circumstance, that will be a quick call to yourselves or your staff to let you know that something's happening on your site. In other situations, it might require a guard, a third-party security guard, to attend site and do a patrol. If we can define that it's a crime, as in someone's somewhere they shouldn't be, we can go straight to police. So that's the end result of what we're trying to achieve with this. We're trying to prevent the crime and get the action.
Thanks, Ant.
No worries.
Gavin?
Okay, my background before getting into self-storage was in finance. Worked at a large private equity firm, and then I spent 10 years running tech startups, starting companies. And 6 years ago, I sold some shares in one of my companies, and I was kind of looking for something to invest in. And I got chatting to my uncle, who was running a container site in my hometown, and he told me, Gavin, people turn up here with their stuff, they move in, they think they'll stay for 3 months, and they're here 3 years later. Just a brilliant business. And so I thought, well, that sounds like a great business to get into. I'd like to get into self-storage. So I did a lot of analysis, and I decided to open up a site about half an hour away from my uncle's site, so I wasn't competing with him. But once I got through kind of a lot of the steps we've talked through here, which is finding your site, getting it fitted out, getting it ready to open, there's a whole lot more to think about from the point of view of how do we sell? How are we going to sell storage to customers? How does a customer who's moving house, and thinking, I need some storage, and they Google it, how do they find my business? These were things I was thinking of. How do they find my site? How do they then book with me? How do they move in? How do I raise invoices? How do I process payments? How do I get a contract signed? How do I check that their ID, make sure that they're actually the person they say they are? There's an awful lot of things for me at the time to think about. And so whenever I opened up my site, I looked around at the software packages at the time in the industry, and I didn't kind of like the look of any of them. So I ended up building my own kind of sort of very early version of what Stora has become. So now I run Stora, which is it's a self-storage software platform that basically does all of the things that I've talked through there. So our platform does all your invoicing, does all your online bookings, processes payments, and the whole goal of it is really to try and make your life, if you're deciding to get into self-storage, make it as easy as possible. A bit like kind of everybody else here, trying to sort of help ease the move into self-storage, because it really has, for me, my first site, it has just been such an amazing investment. I sold it a month ago, and I made probably, I think it was 4.5 times my money, an original investment on that investment, and it ran itself. I was never on site. We had no staff on site. It was a great investment. So I think we're probably all trying to just open up the opportunity. We think it's a great opportunity, and whenever you're looking at software and systems, and like whenever I think about what I wanted, the things that I think are really important when you're looking at systems for your self-storage business, number one is find something that's going to grow your sales. You have to find a way to actually get people to book with you, to go from looking for self-storage to actually becoming a paying customer. So one of the things I would look for is a system that has a high converting online booking portal. So let people book online, the way you book your flights, the way you book your hotels. Let your customers do the same thing. Dynamic pricing and price optimization, these are tools that whenever you open up, you probably aren't really thinking about, but as you get bigger, as you have 100 containers, 500 containers, 3 sites, 5 sites, making sure you're pricing correctly can help grow your occupancy rates, get more bookings. But also there comes a time whenever you might be really full, and actually you can play around with pricing a bit to increase your revenue and without like harming your occupancy rates. Saving time, that really is the job that any software platform should do for you, which I don't spend any time raising invoices or processing payments. Find a software package that does all that for you. Connect to your gate. So Ant talked about this as well. Your gate software, your access system. One of the, we have now 400 sites in the UK that use Stora to run their self-storage business. One of the most popular features that we have is the connection in with, once the booking's made and the customer has paid and they've signed the contract and maybe done an ID check, then our system can automatically allocate them their unit, like unit number 10, whatever it might be, and send your customer the gate code. So your customer can come to your website on a Sunday night. Maybe they want to move in on a Monday morning. They themselves can self-serve within 10 minutes or 5 minutes. They can book, pay, sign the contract, and even get the code to go and move in. And that takes away so much time, because if you rewind kind of 6-7 years ago, none of that ever happened online. That was all done with a visit to the site, maybe a tour, a coffee, sit down, contract signing, taking card details, maybe paying cash. So it saves an awful lot of time. That's a really important thing. And the connection to your gates is an important aspect of that. So make sure you've got a software package that will communicate with your gates and let people in and out. Protecting yourself and customers. So this is another thing that I learned myself. Luckily, just in time, I had a leak in my first facility. It's an indoor. The first one was an indoor facility. There was a hole in the roof, and in a storm, some water came in and it destroyed some of my customers' goods. And it was actually really negative experience for them, but also for me. I actually felt like shutting the business down because it was so bad. Luckily, I had my customers take out contents insurance. And the point of contents insurance, it's not just to protect your customers and their goods, but it's also to protect yourself. Because whenever that leak happened at my site, the first thing my customers said to me was, I don't think they even knew they had insurance. They said, well, Gavin, what are you going to do? Are you replacing all this stuff for me? And it was only that I had insurance that I was able to do that. But if I didn't have insurance, the expectation from the customer is, you're looking after my stuff. If this is destroyed or stolen, of course, if you're using Ant, nothing's ever going to get stolen. That's the guarantee, isn't it?
Don't be doing that to me. Yeah. There's no guarantee with security.
So if somebody's stuff is stolen, they're going to expect you to have to cover it. So make sure and sell insurance. ID checks are a great way as well, just to filter out bad actors. I also had a bad experience with this. One time, we had a customer disappeared. He'd left a lot of breeze blocks in a unit, and I actually had COVID at the time, and my dad went over to empty the unit for me, and a bag of drugs fell out of one of the breeze blocks, and my dad was like, "Gavin's drugs in this in this unit." So we called the police. It wasn't a big deal, but it turned out this was before I did ID checks on people. So this person had used a stolen passport, and because I didn't meet him, that was good enough to move in. Now ID checks that we've built into our system, almost all of our customers use, involve a face picture and an ID, a photographic ID, and it connects the two, make sure that the person who's taking the picture of the passport is also the owner of the passport. So there's ways to protect yourself at the start, make it harder for people to get in, and then of course ways to protect yourself ongoing as well.
Yeah, we're going to say that, not to, I mean, jokingly about guaranteed of them not breaking in, but if I referred to it when I spoke earlier, but I might have said it a little bit quickly and skirted over it because we do it so often. All that's done the right way. It means that the events that we can be presented with are people that not only are trying to gain access but are not allowed by the system, but they've gained access, and then we notice that they're acting differently to that normal customer who would access with that credential. So then if we get a CCTV image, we can also refer to the access logs and see, well, that person normally would access at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. They're in and out within 15 minutes, and it's a single female. That same access code's entered at 9:30 at night, and there's 5 guys in a transit van. Right, we're going to escalate. Whereas if we didn't have the integration, we can't achieve that, because all we'd be getting is the camera trigger. And a camera trigger of 5 guys in a transit van, with only that data presented to you, is not actually a problem. Because if you've got commercial customers, you're sometimes going to have 5 guys in a transit van. Whereas if on the access logs, that's the single female access that we typically see. Not that it's telling us that, we're not looking at customer data, but we would know that that's unit 10. And our guys, because they're receiving images from these cameras often, learn the site. It's still a human operator back in the control room. They know these sites better than the store staff most of the time. And they'll engage, our humans will engage with you if we don't know, to gather that intelligence. So as much as I swept over jokingly because he put me under it as a guarantee, if you do all this, we are in a better place.
Just a couple of things just here. If you are thinking about getting into self-storage, we've got resources on our website that can help you kind of figure out what you want to do. Number one is we have this brand marketplace. One little bit of advice that I would give out just based on some of our customers' experiences is if you are going to open up self-storage, don't name it after your town because we've had customers who've opened up with the name of a town, self-storage, and then they want to open up a second site and a third site because it actually makes a lot of money quite quickly. And they go to other towns and they have to think about changing the name of the whole business. So if you start with something a bit more kind of generic, it can lend itself a bit more towards expansion in the future. We have this marketplace on the website. Use it for some inspiration. If you like any of them, of course, you can buy them off us, but you can get inspired hopefully here as well. We also have lots of resources. One of them is a free financial model. So go to the website, store.co, and you can go to resources and you can find this. There's an Excel spreadsheet as well that can help you just figure out, what sort of money you'll need to get going and what returns you'll get. And then finally, we have the Self-Storage Academy as well. So go to the website, lots of stuff there. I'm sure you've got lots of stuff across lots of our websites, but this is the stuff that's on ours, which is designed to just help you learn about getting into self-storage.
I'll whiz through marketing. I've been asked a few times today, I've got the land, I've got the containers, how do I get customers in there? There's lots of things you can do for free to start with. Utilising Facebook, Facebook groups. Every village, town now has got a community group which you can advertise on in there for free, usually. Advertising there. Facebook Marketplace as well, a lot of people do it on there. Great. Because self-storage is a local business, people will use Google Maps. It's like if I want to find a tyre garage, I'll probably go to Google Maps, not Google, to find that tyre garage. So same thing with self-storage. They'll go Google Maps on their iPhone or Android, type self-storage in there, and how you come up on a Google Maps system is having a Google business profile. It's free to set up, easy to do. So make sure you get a business profile set up, get your pin on the map so people can find you on a map. If you are looking to grow rapidly, PPC, which is Google Ads, invest in that. It's not that expensive. There's not that many keywords that you need to pump in there to get found on or to be top of Google. Self-storage and your town, or self-storage near me, etc. And then you can radius target on there as well. Like a few other things like offers. Like if you do go to Stora, you can do things like 50% off your first month. Discount codes. If you do flyer drops, that work incredibly well. Put on there a code. Go to Stora, they get the first 3 months half price. Little things like that. Like I said, flyer drops work incredibly well still. I was quite surprised at how many self-storage I spoke to recently are still using flyer drops, and it really easy to do through the Royal Mail. Like if you are really interested in starting self-storage, we have these guys I mentioned, Box Plus. It's an all-in-one package that helps you get started with self-storage. We can connect you to all these guys, and they're all going to give you a mega discount for their services because we've passed them the inquiry. So please come and speak to us afterwards. We can talk through more Box Plus and get you set up on a discovery call. We also have a podcast, Chatterbox. All these guys have been on it. Not Ben, Emily came on though. if you do want to know more about self-storage and hear about what these guys do in more in depth, you can listen to it on Spotify, watch it on YouTube. We've done podcasts with loads of operators as well and heard their story. It's a cool resource to go and find out a bit more about self-storage. And that is it from me. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.